And these animals would come get their examinations at the veterinary hospital in front of thousands and thousands of people.
Hello, and welcome to the next episode of On Purpose. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Mark Stetter, the Dean of the UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine. Welcome, Mark.
Morning, Kristin.
So one of my favorite questions to ask any veterinarian is, so when did you fall in love with animals and decide to become a vet?
Well, I think you and I are on the same page in that animals are just super cool. And I knew from a very, very early age that all the different types of animals really mesmerized me and intrigued me. I had dogs and cats and guinea pigs and raccoons, but I remember distinctly finding one summer day some caterpillars and was able to kind of move them into a tank across from my bed, feed them leaves, and watch them turn into a cocoon, and then through the winter come out the next spring as butterflies. And it was stories like that, experiences like that really, embedded in me a deep feeling that animals are just incredible in many, many ways, and that I wanted to work with them as a career.
One of the things people also always love hearing about you is you moved from the zoo animals to being the chief vet, basically managing all the animals for Walt Disney, which is just a fascinating job. So would love you to share a little bit about what was your responsibility there and what was that like?
I had the privilege of being part of the opening team for Disney's Animal Kingdom. And so for me, Disney was a great example of how we can take entertainment with education and do something that's really meaningful from the public perspective. So what we did when we opened the park was saying there's a lot of people that are really interested in kind of the back of house of how we take care of zoo and wildlife. And so they built Rafiki's Planet Watch, which is the hub of being able to sneak peek backstage at the Animal Kingdom, how you take care of animals of all these different backgrounds. And we would mic ourselves up and we would be able to say, hey, this is Gino, and Gino is a 350-pound silverback gorilla who's here today for a full cardiac examination. He's going to have blood tests, and he's going to have echocardiogram, and he's going to have radiographs, and we're going to make sure that he's healthy in every way. And let me tell you a little bit about gorillas in the wild, and let me tell you a little bit about the gorillas that we have here and the family groups that they are and how successful we've been in breeding them. And so it was just a phenomenal way for us to care for the animals, and at the same time we could also show the public how cool these animals are and how veterinary medicine keeps them healthy and how important they are in nature in many, many ways.
Where do you see right now some of the biggest connections between, the innovations you're seeing in animal health and the connection back to human health?
Last year about this time, I was able to visit some of our researchers in Tanzania. And for me, it was a great example about the overlap between animal health, human health, and the ecosystem. So Rift Valley fever is a terrible disease that's been the scourge of many countries in Africa for centuries. And until recently, there's been no treatment for it. Our team has been able to develop an effective vaccine for livestock, which is now proven, and they've just been given the first approval to do phase 1 studies for the Rift Valley fever vaccine for people. And so it's a great example of how a One Health approach doesn't work if just the veterinarians are working in a laboratory here, but how you use a team of professionals from the lab to the wilds, to the livestock, to the communities are all critical to be able to solve a century-old disease problem that's been going on in Africa.
Your embracing of technology, has always been incredibly impressive. And, one of the other things that really intrigued me is the drone footage using infrared cameras, really tracking orcas in the Pacific Northwest. Talk to me a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish there and what we can learn from that study.
Absolutely. So how can we determine the health of these animals when they're wild animals that we don't want to put our hands on, but we need to do diagnostic tests and we need to determine if they're healthy populations and help them from a conservation. So using innovative techniques, drones is a good example. We can actually fly over the killer whale pods, and as they exhale through their blowhole, we can collect samples. And from those samples, we can do a variety of tests to determine the normal bacteria and is there respiratory health where it should be. So there's just a tremendous amount of ways that we can now look at the health of wild populations and domestic animals using some of these fancier new technologies.
So, I mean, I can imagine what your purpose is, because it feels there's such a genuine line that goes through each of these. But I wondered, did you ever sit down and think about what your personal purpose was, and how that's influencing where you are today and probably where you'll go in the future?
When I combine kind of my journey and what makes me excited to show up for work every day, it's around combining my passion and my experience with animals, with animal health, with storytelling, and elevating the profession that we all work in, right? So the public knows a little bit about what we do. Society appreciates in some ways what we do, but I think there's a lot more that can be done to use storytelling, to use people's love of animals, people's love of nature, people's love of science, to elevate our purpose and to bring greater value to veterinary medicine, to animal health, to human health, and how we can improve society in so many ways.
Well, Mark, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I want to thank you for what you've done, from everything from dogs and cats to livestock, from zoo animals to conservation. You've had an incredible impact on animals and on the veterinary profession overall. So thank you for that. And thank you for joining us for this episode of On Purpose. We look forward to seeing you again next time.